Hey everybody, it's Mr. Frazier. Welcome third grade to our science lecture for Tuesday, March 24th. Um, Today we're going to do a little bit of review. We're going to talk about classification. Remember, classification means putting animals into groups based on what they're made of or their characteristics. That's a word that we're going to use a lot today. We've been using it in class. Remember, they do not group or classify animals based on how they look, but what they're made of, what their character traits are. So we're going to review and then we're going to talk about some new ones today. So let's get started. All right. First up, have some cool little things to look at. Remember, the pages in your book are what you're going to be reading. All of the information comes from your book, and you should be reading those pages, if not like every day, every week. So you read the pages in your book, and then you watch these, and hopefully that's enough to help you do your comp checks and your tests. Remember, the words that we're looking for are going to be the bold black words or the italicized words. And that's most of what I'm using here in these keynotes. So, classification. The two big groups of animals that we classify are vertebrates and invertebrates. A vertebrate animal is an animal with a backbone. We talked about the backbone that goes all the way down the spine of animals who are vertebrates. So whether you're a big old whale or a teeny tiny little hamster, if you're a vertebrate, you have backbones. If you are an invertebrate, you do not have backbones. So an invertebrate can be a jellyfish, which has no bones at all, or it could be a crab. It has an exoskeleton, a hard shell on the outside to protect it. But whether it's hard on the outside or soft on the outside, if it doesn't have a backbone or vertebrae, then it is an invertebrate. So you see we got a picture of a lizard there. That is a reptile vertebrate, and its backbone goes all the way down from its head to its tail. And on the other side, we got a beetle, and that is an invertebrate. It is an insect, and we're going to be talking about those this week. All right, next slide. The 5 classes of vertebrates, those who have backbones: mammals, fish, amphibians, reptiles, and birds. Remember, all animals are classified on their characteristics. So all mammals, like this gorilla here, have hair. They are warm-blooded. They give birth to live young. They produce milk for their babies. If an animal does all those things, it's a mammal. So even though whales or dolphins live in the ocean and may look a little bit like fish, they are not. They are mammals. They do all of those things. They have hair. They maybe nostril hair. They give birth to live young. They give milk to their babies. So they are mammals. Fish, on the other hand, have their own character traits. Fish breathe oxygen through gills. They have, most of them have scales on the outside of their body. They are cold-blooded. Remember, cold-blooded doesn't mean that they're freezing cold all the time. It means that their body temperature changes with the temperature around them. So you and I, mammals, we can stay warm even when it's cold. You put a coat on, and your body will keep you warm. You produce heat, you're warm-blooded. But if we were cold-blooded and we went into the snow, well, we would just freeze because we wouldn't be able to keep ourselves warm. Fish are cold-blooded. Reptiles, you see the chameleon just to the left, are also cold-blooded. They have rough, scaly skin. They breathe oxygen through lungs. And some of them have camouflage. We talked about this word in class. Camouflage means that your body on the outside is designed to blend in with your surroundings. So certain animals are green because they live in green forests. Um, if they live in a desert, then they're going to be kind of brownish, right, to blend in with the sand. Certain animals, like this chameleon, can change their skin color and pattern to blend in with whatever they go around. So that's a really cool ability. And lastly, we talked about amphibians. Amphibians on the bottom, like that little frog. Amphibians are unique because they're the only vertebrates that transform. They start out as eggs. They hatch into tadpoles where they swim around like fish. They breathe oxygen through gills. But unlike reptiles or mammals or birds, they then transform or metamorphose from a tadpole swimming in the water, and they grow legs and they lose their tail and they move out onto the land. You can see amphibians are also different than reptiles. They have smooth skin. Some frogs even breathe through their skin. And so they are their own group. Bright colored frogs, like the one you see there, are poisonous. And if they're not poisonous, they have camouflage green so they don't get eaten by bigger animals. But if they're super bright, that bright color is telling any predators, don't eat me, you will die. And I don't want to die either. So bright colored frogs are poisonous. Next slide. The last class of vertebrate, mammals. Or, sorry, birds. Birds have their own characteristic. This is going to be the section on pages 178 to 183. So if you want to follow along, you can open your book and do that. The characteristics of a bird. Now, when we think of birds, we think of the characteristics of flying. But you see, that big old wonky bird, an ostrich, doesn't fly. Most birds fly, but not all do. However, whether it is an ostrich that runs on the ground or a woodpecker that flies around, all birds have wings. That is one of the characteristics that birds have. They have wings. They all have 2 legs. You will never find a bird with 4 legs. They are bipedal. They have 2 legs. Also, birds have feathers. Humans have hair, fish have scales, birds have feathers. I'm going to talk about them in a second. And they get oxygen through lungs. Remember, all animals breathe oxygen. Plants breathe carbon dioxide and give off oxygen. All animals breathe oxygen. Fish use gills. Amphibians have different ways of doing it. Sometimes they breathe through their skin. But birds, mammals, and reptiles breathe through lungs. And finally, birds lay eggs. They are what we call oviparous, meaning they lay eggs. Most animals lay eggs, and birds are no exception. All right, next slide. Ba-boom. Types of birds. Now, the type of bird that you're talking about will change based on where they live and how they live. So water birds, like ducks, have webbed feet because they need to swim. Webs on their feet, I mean, if you look at a duck's foot, there's a little thin membrane in between each of their toes, and they're like paddles. If you've ever had like flippers or something on when you go swimming, they help push the water. So ducks swim, and so it helps to have webbed feet to paddle around the water. Perching birds, like the woodpecker, are birds that have 3 toes. They have 2 toes pointing forward and 1 toe pointing back. And the reason their feet are like that is so that they can grab on to the tree. Just like we have fingers to grab onto things, their feet act like hands. So if they fly onto a branch, they don't just fall off. They have those 3 toes that grip onto the branch and hold them in place. And finally, we have birds of prey. Now, in the last chapter, we talked about predators and prey. Predators hunt other animals. Prey are animals that get eaten. A bird of prey is a bird that hunts prey. So, birds of prey are things like this bad boy, kaboom, bald eagle, or a hawk. And you see how they have sharp claws on their feet called talons. And they swoop down. Birds of prey, all birds have excellent eyesight, but they fly around up in the sky looking down on the ground for things to catch and eat, like little mammals, and then or fish. And then they swoop down. You can see that picture of that awesome eagle swooping down, and it's got its talons wide open, and then it grabs whatever it's going to eat for dinner that night. And so you can see an eagle's feet look different than a duck's feet, because a duck needs to swim, and ducks eat algae and plants in the water, while eagles eat other animals, so they have a sharp beak. They have sharp talons. Obviously, they are different. They have slightly different characteristics because of how they live and what they eat. All right, so flight and feathers. Even though all birds don't fly, all birds have feathers because feathers do more than just one thing. First of all, they keep a bird warm. So birds are warm-blooded like mammals, which means they can heat their body up. Mammals have hair to keep them warm, but birds use feathers, and so the feathers close to a bird's body are called down feathers, and they help keep in the heat, like a jacket or a blanket. But they also direct airflow for flying. If you see this picture of the bird to your right, you see how its feathers are spread out. And if you've ever been on an airplane, you can see on an airplane's wings there's little flaps that change where the air goes, and that's what feathers do. As the air runs over the bird's body, the feathers direct the air, and that helps them fly kind of like a plane. Feathers also help camouflage, or if a bird that's on the ground, like a quail, wants to be brown, right? Don't want to be bright pink. Everybody will be able to see and catch you. Or they communicate. If you've ever seen a peacock, peacocks have those super bright feathers, and only the boy peacocks have those bright feathers because they want all of the girl peacocks to look at their bright feathers and be like, ooh, man, that peacock's got it going on. So they can communicate whether they're a boy or a girl, or whether they're looking to lay eggs. But feathers can be used for all kinds of things. And lastly, about birds, we're going to talk about their bones. Now, because most birds fly, they got to stay light. So, if they have heavy bones, they wouldn't be able to fly very well. So a bird's bones, those of them that fly at least, are hollow in the middle. And that keeps them light. You can't have an airplane that's made out of big old heavy metal tubes. They got to be made out of light things like aluminum. So those hollow bones help birds fly. So feathers, hollow bones help birds fly. Their talons or their feet help them hunt or swim. And their characteristics make them birds, not mammals or reptiles. Next time together, we're going to talk about invertebrates. The invertebrates, once again, any animal that does not have a backbone. So invertebrates are going to be insects or spiders or all of the little creepy crawly things on the ground, or they could be jellyfish in the ocean, anything without a backbone. But that is a discussion for a later day. I hope you guys are all doing well. I miss you and can't wait till we're back in school. I hope you're keeping up with everything, and if you have any questions, let me know. All right, I will see you next time.